Welcome into another episode of the Sun Belt Syndicate. And since this is the 3B baseball edition, we're throwing you a little curveball today, right, TJ?
Ooh, I like that. He's using puns now.
Hey, man, got that high school education, that community college degree. I just pretend I went to the good old App State. I never actually walked on campus except to attend some athletic events. So we'll pretend as I did otherwise.
It's basically the
But
same thing, right?
Yeah, right? I paid less
Basically the same.
tuition to get a degree or diploma or a piece of paper, whatever you want to call those things these days. Uh, so, yeah, made out a little bit better in that regard. But with you from the first kick to the last pitch, and again, we are getting deeper into baseball season. TJ, is it starting to feel like baseball season to you up north?
Well, in Connecticut, no, because UConn is in the Sweet 16, so it's still very much basketball season up here. I love March Madness. It's always basketball season through March, through that first week of April, but with baseball heating up, conference play starting in the Sun Belt, this is the best time of year for me. It's my favorite sporting event of all time in the NCAA tournament, mixed with the beginning of conference play. It doesn't get any better in college athletics, in my opinion. And this is a hot take because college football is a thing, but it
True.
doesn't get any better than that month of March.
Yeah. I like I mean, there's just so many sports going on, right? Like for those that are into golf, there's that. I can't do that one. I mean, I don't mind playing. I can't watch it on TV. But
Mhm.
we also had the World Baseball Classic. How much of that did you get into?
I watched a decent amount. I mean, I followed along. It's not my forte. It's not my forte. Like I love the celebrations. I love the fact that it's basically the baseball Olympics. I love that side of things. But what I really can't stand is the fact that people are already making these assumptions about these players. Like they're playing high stakes games coming off of being off for 3 months. And, like, that's what I don't get. Like, the whole Aaron Judge conversation drives me nuts because it's like he played phenomenally the entire season or the entire set of games, and the stats show that. But you're going to take 6 at bats, and that's going to dampen his legacy. Like, that doesn't, especially games that occurred in February and March, like, that doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah. No, I agree. I mean, it's kind of a one-off thing. The thing that bothered me the most about it is I guess, when you get the World Cup, when you get the Olympics, yeah, there's the rarity that like somebody has moved somewhere foreign and gotten citizenship and become a member and they don't look like everybody else or their name doesn't fit with what you think of as Italian or South African or whatever. But like this one just feels like falsehood, like under the false flag, like the Italian teams, like that the whole joke of it, right? Like, oh yeah, his mom made spaghetti one time on Wednesday when he was in fifth grade. He's going to be on the Italian squad, right? Like, it's somewhat of a stretch. I get it. It makes it better when you have labels. I get it, but it doesn't feel like it's a true World Cup of baseball in that sense. I don't know if that bothered you at all or not. I mean, it was fun.
Uh,
I don't have a problem with
I
the fun
thought
part,
I thought the
but
Austin Wells jokes were hilarious with the Dominican Republic, like everybody's speaking Spanish, and then he comes in and he's like, "Hola, me llamo Austin." Like those were funny. But no,
yeah,
like you know what? If you can get on the roster for the DR and you got a chance to win it, absolutely get on the roster. USA ended up taking that, but yeah, I like I said, I like it. The speculation starting already just tells you what the big market media is, living off of. So it is what it is. It's a great event. It's great for, nationality and culture pride, but it's just like it's nothing like the World Series. Derek Jeter said it. You agree with it. Postseason in the MLB is the true biggest stage in the sport. So that's what I'll be waiting for.
yeah, definitely, no doubt about it. It definitely gets that that feel like it's the proper time in October for postseason baseball, where this is kind of like a forced thing. I think had the U.S. not been as successful, I don't think it really would have been all that popular. Obviously, in the DR and Venezuela, of course, sure. I think it had to be what it was in the States for it to get to the point, right? Like, had we lost 2 of the first 4 games, I don't think we would have even moved on, 1. But
Mhm.
2, I don't think anyone would have thought it was a big deal. So, it's fun to see people. I mean, people at work were talking about it. I have a bunch of people that don't typically watch baseball were talking about it. So that was kind of cool, kind of interesting. Ben James chiming in here first. No surprise to our big time fans that watch and listen every week. What's going on? And he says, "Go Red Wolves! I don't doubt A-State will bounce back versus James Madison this upcoming weekend." And currently watching A-State women's basketball in the second round of the WNIT versus Radford. Yeah, absolutely. One of the few teams who's continuing to play postseason basketball, men or women's. So congrats to them, because the men's side's completely done. South Alabama went down to Auburn, and Troy obviously lost pretty badly to Nebraska. I was a little disappointed in that. I thought they'd for sure covered that 13.5-point spread, TJ. What quick thoughts on the basketball before we get into the main event of tonight?
No, I mean, I've been so locked into the tournament that I just don't have many thoughts on it. But the Red Wolves, the Lady Red Wolves, continuing to play. Hopefully that is a step in the right direction for the women's division. Seeing those teams being more competitive and making more runs in postseason tournaments. Keith Gill, he's said that he wants to improve the Sun Belt standing in basketball, both men and women. He was the chairman of the committee this year, and a lot of people were very happy with how the committee selected this year, with a couple of, missed seeds people were kind of talking about. But I'm a big listener of the Eye on College Basketball podcast, CBS, with Norlander and Gary Parrish, and they were saying there's nothing that we can be upset about this one. Like, everybody that we thought would get in got in. There's a couple things that we might move around with the lines, but Keith Gill did a great job. And now hopefully take that momentum in the selection committee, move it into Sun Belt play. And we've already seen how competitive it was this year.
Yeah, absolutely. I think one of the things that I'd seen a lot of people say, both inside the Sun Belt fandom and outside, was how well he articulated what decisions were made and why, right? Like, we don't get that really well in other things. I think, what is the college football playoff? I forget who it was exactly. Someone cracked a 6-7 joke when they were asked a serious question about.
The
It's like,
spokesperson for he's the athletic director, I think, for Arkansas.
that's right. Okay. Yeah. I mean, I get it, right? You're trying to break the ice a little bit and just have a fun time with it. But, some people are going to be like, this is football. Like basketball, you get a lot of teams in. Football, you get very few, and people want to know seriously why their team was left in or out. And I think, at that time, it wasn't the proper thing to throw in there.
And I think that's a good comparison, though. Like the differences between Keith Gill and his what he said to the media, as opposed to what I believe his name is Yorachuk said to the media.
Yep.
Like, when you asked Yorachuk a question, like Reese Davis, I think, doubled up and tried to hold him to an answer about I think it was Alabama, and Yorachuk just didn't really answer him. He didn't answer him twice. And he kept going back to, the printed answer that he was supposed to give about this particular thing, and he didn't elaborate. Keith Gill was very transparent. He was like, this is why we did what we did, and how we did it, how we rationalized it. And that's why it became a really good bracket. Like, it was, first of all, it was the correct bracket, I believe, other than, once again, a couple missed seeds that some people took issue with. But the one that I can remember is like St. John's is a 5 seed. That didn't make a whole lot of sense, and it didn't seem to matter because they're in the Sweet 16, going up against Duke on, I think, Thursday. So that's one of the gripes that people had, and other people didn't think that Vandy was a 5 seed. But other than that, like the teams that deserved to get in got in. He explained why. He explained his reasoning, and for that reason, people are pretty happy with the way that the committee selected.
Yeah, my big concern was Miami of Ohio not getting a higher, not a higher seed. I guess that's the thing, right? That seeded wise, number wise, you say they could possibly be the 11. So actually, that's not bad. But then they had the play-in game that they had to play versus. Oh God, who did they play in the play-in game? Now I'm going blank.
Was it SMU?
Maybe it was SMU.
I'm not
That sounds about
positive
right.
either. But what
I
I'll
think
say
you're right,
about
though.
what I'll say about them doing the play, and I don't think it was now that I'm thinking about it, but um, what I'll say about the playing game is I think that that was the perfect compromise because everyone was talking about, well, yeah, they're 31 and 0 or 31 and 1 heading into Selection Sunday with the loss in their tournament, but they're also like that they don't have a great strength of schedule. And people are talking about the quad one wins. Thank you, Ben. People are talking about the quad one wins. People are or the lack thereof, I should say, and the fact that they have a very poor net ranking, very poor strength of schedule. So it's like, yeah, you know what? Get them a ticket to the dance and make them prove it. And they did. And they ended
Yeah.
up in the round of 64. So I think that if you have anything to say, it's that the committee at the very least gave them an opportunity to prove to the rest of the country that yes, indeed they do belong here, and they beat a power conference team to get there. So like if you were going to leave a 31 win team out of the NCAA tournament, you're out of your mind. You are
Yes.
out of your mind. I don't care how the strength of schedule is. We saw Liberty in football. They were undefeated, 13 and 0, conference champions. They had the 134th toughest out of 134 schools schedules. And they were the New Year's Six representative in, I believe, what was that, the final year of the 4-team playoff? And yeah, sure, they got
I
smoked by
think you're right.
Oregon. They got smoked by Oregon,
Yeah.
but they played their schedule. They did what they were supposed to do. They didn't leave any doubt, and they got in. They got into the New Year's Six, and that's what it should have been. And for Miami of Ohio, I'm very glad that they got in. I'm glad that they were able to advance to the round of 64 and at least get a piece of the dance because they deserved it.
Yeah, I think it's important too for future Sunbelt conversation, right? Like, what if a Sunbelt team is in that situation later? Oh, your conference isn't any good. Yeah, but we went undefeated. Like that, we want the same argument made at that time. So
You can
I was
only
fighting.
control your schedule. You can't control
True.
the rosters of everybody else in your conference. In the Sun Belt, if my team is very, very good and we've made sure that we've won every single game on our schedule, I can't account for what the other 13 schools are doing. I played my
Right.
schedule and we did what we did. And that's really all you can do. It's the same thing with not to make this a way bigger talking point than we've already made it, but like it's the same thing with Notre Dame. It's like people are talking about how soft their schedule is next year. It wasn't a soft schedule when they scheduled it. So they are just going to have to play their schedule. That's all that they can do. If they go 12 and 0, they should get into the playoff. They played their
Right.
schedule. It's not like they chose, well, these teams kind of sucked last year, so let's do 12 of these games. Like no, they lost to USC and they added BYU. If anything, they're making a concerted effort to make their schedule tougher, and that's what Miami of Ohio did. They did the best that they could do and they went undefeated in the regular season. I don't know how you can fault them for that.
Yep, exactly. Same thing with JMU in football this year. People wanted to point to it, but hey, it's like you said, football is even different because basketball and baseball, to a much larger extent, can make their schedules up almost halfway. Like right before the season, right? Because there's people still working on deals. Football is made like years in advance, like you said, so it's impossible to try and place where these teams are, especially now with NIL. You never know who's going to be good or bad the very next year. So let alone 5 years in advance.
Teams can
Well,
be
wrapping
completely
up.
different.
Yeah, exactly. Wrapping up with the basketball. Ben says if A-State wins, they play the winner of Purdue, Fort Wayne, or South Alabama. So South Alabama still going. Brent is chiming in saying Marshall is still alive, and girls WNIT as well. So again, the ladies, the men's conference basketball wise, not the greatest. It was very competitive, fun to pay attention to. Postseason success was notwithstanding, unfortunately, not so the case in the women's side. So very good to see a lot of them still playing, especially South Alabama's been on a run ever since that coastal brawl, fist fight, little skirmish, whatever you want to call it. But it seemed to put them into a nice trajectory to end their season. So good on the Jags for to win well as Lady Red, Lady Thundering Herd there. All right. Well, without further ado, let's get into what we're calling tonight's show, which is All Shades of Green. And we'll explain that title here in just a second as we round the bases. All right, so All Shades of Green. Look, who's sitting at the top of the conference? And I'll ask you, TJ, to start it off before we get into the weekly picks. Marshall is obviously green, Kelly Green to be specific. Coastal, your shots are teal. I looked it up to see if my title made any sense. I'd already made my mind up on what the title of this show was going to be, because Coastal sits at 1, Marshall sits at 2, but teal is kind of somewhere between blue and green, so I called it and considered it a shade of green. Agree or disagree?
I'll agree. It's blue green. We'll allow it. You have the Conway stamp of approval.
There we go. I'll take it. I'll take the Conway stamp of approval. They did welcome me with open arms. Luckily, they weren't playing App State when I was there, so it was all love because we both were rooting heavily against Clemson, and they luckily took that game down there when I visited. All right, weekly
happy birthday, by the way, for your birthday with that series against App State. I also heard you last week talking some trash. Don't think that I wasn't privy to that. Want to talk some trash to App State. Weird being the same age. Yeah. You're I heard you. Don't even worry about it. You can't talk. You want to talk trash? Beat us in a sport. Beat us in a sport. It's not football. It's not baseball. Pick something else.
I think we had you in basketball this year, right? Didn't we? I feel
maybe not.
Maybe. Had you in football years ago. Now we can't seem to beat you for anything.
Yeah,
and that was a game I was at, and I was like, man, we got this thing. And then just
while we're at it, let's brag about 2007.
Hey, I got no, I'm just kidding. All right. Oh man. All right. Ben's got says he thinks Baseball of America ranking got A-State into A-State's head when they played Georgia State. Yeah, we'll probably touch on that here in a minute. Now, as far as the weekly picks, though, we'll go full screen for this. Marv ran away with this one in a landslide. So Seth had his best weekend of the year so far, picking 3 series correct. He happened to pick the same exact series correct as myself. So Dom and Seth both tied with 3 series apiece. Marv comes in here and obliterates us by getting 5 series exactly correct. Again, a little reminder. You don't get the series exactly correct. You get it wrong. You have to nail the exact outcome to get a green check mark and get it right. CFB home. We had made a deal with him as the first picker. He could stay on as long as he beat all 3 of any one of us, actually, was the deal. If he could beat any one of us, he could stay on and continue picking. That was not the case. He picked 1 series correct, the Marshall versus Georgia Southern one. Got them all wrong the rest of the way. I was honest with him today when I, sent that update out, and I said, I was actually thinking that he stood a really good chance. He was the only one who took A-State in a sweep. He took ODU to beat App. So if just those 2 series had flipped, he would have been tied with Marv with 3 correct picks. And then he had some other picks that could have gone either way, like the ULM versus South Alabama one. So it's a really fun. We've got a couple people now listed as possibilities to take some picks as well. So I think we might have them all kind of laid out for the rest of the season. But I'll have to spell out how many weeks we have left. But yeah, I mean, you want to give anybody a hard time here, TJ? Like what their overall record? And as a reminder, if you see this thing on social media or you're watching here live, the top record is the series correct and wrong, and the one underneath that is the overall game. So we're keeping track of the overall games as well, so we don't look like we all have losing records. Still looking okay in the overalls, I think.
Well, a couple things. Number one, Seth, welcome. Thanks for showing up this week. That's fantastic. Second, you guys put so much pressure on yourself. It's absurd. Like there's so much wrong on this graphic, but it's like, Dom and Seth, you guys both picked USM to win against Troy. And because you picked a sweep and not 2-1, you guys get it wrong. It's like this is absurd. College game day isn't even this hard. It's you guys need to ease up on yourselves a little bit.
So we've heard that from a couple people, and Seth is one of those people actually who does not like how we do this. But Marv and I like it because it's just
hold on a minute. Wait a minute. Let's unpack that.
I do have to give Seth credit though. For the past 2 seasons, he's been the better one at this. Typically, Marv's gotten really close, and then Marv's running away with it so far this year. But he has been successful, still just upset. I think one of the things he always wanted to was the overall record to be shown, so that if the series don't work out, he's like, we all look like we don't know anything. So we did decide to put that in there this year. So there is a lot of numbers on here, but I've tried to make it still somewhat readable. I think people are catching on to how we do this now too. A lot of people, seem to not get the team on the left is the number on the left and the team on the right is the number on the right for a minute. Once they get it, I think it's understandable. But I just didn't want to have, like you said, this is a busy graphic. It's just how it's going to be. You have to do something to keep it a little bit cleaner. So having the team that somebody picks beside all of these numbers, I think would just be too much. So we decided to do it this way, make it hopefully somewhat readable. But any last thoughts on our weekly picks there?
No, like I said, congratulations to Seth doubling his win total. We like that. We like to see that. And Marv, the only one with a winning record in both categories. Marv's on a heater.
Yes, he is. He's been really good this year, and this is by far his best week. I didn't think any point in the season anybody would pick 5 series exactly correct. Again, he had no, well, when he missed the ones he missed, he actually would have lost the series had we just gone on who would have won anyways. So that's kind of interesting that happened, but yeah, it's
maybe Marv
interesting there to say the least.
Off the earth. Maybe Marv isn't here because he dropped off the earth with his perfect bracket.
Yeah. He took his money and ran. So yeah. All right, getting to the power rankings, and TJ had a question for me too, just to make some clarification that we don't update these fast enough, which is true, we don't. However, this is the rankings going into the weekend, so this does not take into account anything that happened Friday, Saturday, or Sunday of this past week. These are released that day before that, so we kind of see where teams laid out beforehand. Obviously, that will not stay the same. We got some obvious movement that's going to happen here. Obviously, the Cajuns will fall from 3, TJ. Would you think that might be a heavy fall, or do you think that it may be still having them within that top 7?
I mean, I don't think it's going to be a heavy fall. They'll still be in the top half. I think they should be. But you did get swept. That is something that you're going to have to pay the price for. That being said, you got swept by Texas State, who has some marquee wins on the season. So I think that this is going to be the week where you start to see Texas State move up. If I had to, do this right this second, with Arkansas State, they lose the series. Coastal looks like a completely different ball club in the month of March than they did in the month of February. I'd probably have it Southern Miss, Coastal, Arkansas State, Texas State, Louisiana, if it was my choice. And I think that you're going to see those 5 schools really start to, come together in the top of this power ranking. But then, also don't count out ULM. ULM is having a surprising, revival season after last year. And Marshall had a good weekend as well. So you're going to see a lot of players this year. I think that this year, the conference last year, you can make the argument that the Sun Belt was down. You can't make that argument this year. They're beating SEC teams left and right. So this is going to be a really competitive conference this year. You're already seeing that. But those 5 at the top, you're going to see Texas State move up into that top 5, and they're going to scramble a little bit after this weekend.
Yeah, I actually am a little surprised here because I think I'm already leaning toward, and again, we'll have to take in the midweeks into account before these come out again. But right now, I'd probably lean on Coastal as my new number 1. And that seems like a big jump from where they are in the current rankings from 4. But I just don't know if the teams ahead of them have done it. I mean, obviously, Louisiana, like we just said, fallen out. Georgia State beating A-State. When you look at where these rankings are at, that's a bad loss. And also all the momentum A-State had. And then Southern Miss, as much as they have had great wins, they haven't had the greatest start to conference play just yet. So I may be one who's putting Coastal 1, which I know would make you very happy. So we'll see if that holds true.
It would make me happy, but what I will say, just to be as completely unbiased as I can, Southern Miss has some marquee wins so far.
They do.
Coastal's got Wake Forest, and they're going to get a shot at Clemson tomorrow. But I don't think that their resume at this point in time, I know that it's 6-0 to 3-3 in conference play. I don't think that Coastal's resume quite matches Southern Miss yet. But I think that this past weekend was enough to put, especially with the Cajuns getting swept and Arkansas State losing, I think that that's enough to slide Coastal up to 2. I think that that's fair, especially with the way that Coastal looked over the weekend. It's going to take, because unfortunately for Coastal Carolina to make it into the top spot, they're going to have to beat Clemson. Well, Southern Miss this week has a chance to play Mississippi State again. And if both of them win, I can't see any rationale to punish USM. So I would have Southern Miss 1, Coastal 2, and then you work your way from there.
Yeah, that is a good point. You'd be having them play a number 6 ranked Mississippi State versus a now unranked Clemson team. So you're right. It comes down to the midweek being the difference maker, and both teams were to win. Yes, you're probably, like you said, elevating or keeping USM at the top, and depending on where you have them after this weekend. But that's what's the fun part about power rankings, right? Like, I think what you described is exactly what people are thinking when it comes to the rankings, and these are power rankings. So to me, you have to look at the whole thing, but you also have to look at, like, what's the most recent. Like, are they sliding or are they moving up? And I think Coastal is now proving that, like, hey, the depth is there, right? Because that was kind of the question mark when the pitching was lost a little bit, and there was some questions asked. They've responded strongly, and they've responded well, and now they're about to get some of those guys back. So yeah, I think as power rankings are concerned, they keep climbing, and it wouldn't be surprising to see them back at the very top here very, very shortly. So that is kind of the wrap up of last week's, fun stuff on the side. Here is a look at the current conference standings. As we talked about at the start of the show, Coastal Carolina, a perfect 6-0, the only undefeated team in conference play. Marshall right on their heels, and they had this 5-1 record. That one came in their most recent game. Had they not dropped the last game to Georgia Southern, they'd be tied at the top of the conference with Coastal. So that's how important one game can be. And then I don't know, TJ, ULM is sitting third in this conference over a ranked Southern Miss team, a sometimes ranked in certain polls A State team, a previously ranked Cajuns team. But there they are, the Warhawks at number 3 with a 4-2 record. Is that a product of who they've played, or do you think this ULM team could be for real and be competitive in this year's version of the Sun Belt?
Well, this weekend they went 1-2 against
South Alabama.
There in South Alabama. They went 1-2 against South Alabama, which is just so surprising, being as though they swept Texas State the weekend before. So you really don't know what you're getting with this ULM team. I said before, like, don't be surprised if they creep into the mix. But this is like you've seen kind of both ends of the spectrum here. You know, there's a South Alabama team that's 3-3 now. They were 1-2 in the first weekend. Now they go 2-1 against ULM, who previously swept Texas State. Like you really, I don't think there's enough data to declare whether or not ULM is going to be a contender or a higher seed in the Sun Belt Championship yet, but they have done all the right things as of this point. They're one of 3 teams in the conference with a winning record in conference. Then you look at their overall record; they're 14-11. So okay, the middle of the pack, maybe it's early conference play jitters for other teams. Maybe it's they're starting to wake up. You just don't know. You'll have to wait and see in the next couple weekends.
Yeah, I think that's a very fair assessment. It's like we saw with some basketball stuff early on, right? Like, your out of conference doesn't necessarily tell you enough, right? We had some teams out of conference who played some stronger skills, and we had some teams that played a bunch of NAIA or Division II schools and kind of padded that resume, and they came in with what was a good-looking record, but the talent really wasn't as good as maybe the record had indicated. I don't quite think that's the same with this iteration of baseball, but it could be somewhat similar, because I think there are still some schedules and some RPIs that are not going to be all that close or consistent throughout the league, and we might see that play out as we get deeper into the conference play. A bunch of teams tied at 3-3, a bunch of teams tied at 2-4. We got Georgia Southern down there at 1-5, but they are just also 6-17 overall. Is there any real big surprises for you? I mean, is that 2-4 record for the Cajuns, even though they've got the 16-8 record overall? Is that kind of shocking, or is it really just this past weekend that's shocking about that?
It's just this past weekend. I mean, and it's not necessarily shocking. We knew that Texas State was going to be good heading into this season. We knew that they were good after they beat Texas. So, like, it's not, I don't think that it's shocking that Texas State showed up to play this weekend and essentially knocked Louisiana out of the D1 baseball rankings. You know, I don't think that that's a shock, but there's a ton of baseball left to be played. Louisiana it was a rough weekend for Louisiana. Texas State is starting to get some attention. I think you could see them if they play some weekend series the next couple weeks really well, and they build off of this momentum, you could see them creep into the top 25 potentially. Louisiana has already been there. They have a marquee win over LSU. So they're still, like, they're on the outside, but they're not that far on the outside. I would put them at 28th lowest. So just give them some time, figure it out here in conference play. They're, let's see who they got coming up next in conference play. I know that it's later on in the show. They've got ULM. So this is either going to be Raging Cajuns getting back on track, or ULM's going to prove to us the question that I posed before. Are they the legit thing? It's a big weekend for Raging Cajuns, and I don't think that anyone really knows what to expect from that series based on what ULM has done.
Good point. I think that's a one of those matchups whenever the two Louisiana schools play each other before we're about to have a third Louisiana school. But for now, we still have two, so it'll always be fun to watch that one and see all the trash talking that goes on between those two fan bases. Okay, we have talked about some of this, so we'll probably go through this a little bit faster, but it's time that we rewind the week. Right. I think that played like 3 times for me, so hopefully that was smoother for everyone watching and paying attention. I don't know what happened there. But the quick snapshot, there was only 2 teams that secured sweeps, which was Texas State and at the time, number 16, Coastal Carolina. There was 2 teams that got swept. So the geometry, the math here, very even, very easy to see. James Madison being the team that got swept by Coastal, and the Cajuns, previously number 25 in the nation in the D1 poll, swept by Texas State. So that's just a quick look and look back on last week. We had some
Can we
games early
also?
on that
I'm
were
sorry.
canceled due to weather.
Can we go back? I don't mean to cut you off, but can we go back to that slide for a second?
Yeah.
Because we need to give some love to the Chanticleers, because that wasn't a sweep. That was that was a crime being committed this past weekend. It was not your typical sweep. Those were 3 straight run rule games. They played 21 innings this weekend. That's all they played. That's all they needed. Coastal Carolina, I mean, like, just taking a look, it's a 38-8 run differential in those 3 games for Coastal. Like, Coastal showed up to play. Rex Watson with another 3 home runs. He's been a huge piece of that offense. Great pickup in the transfer portal. He had 2 of those home runs and 7 RBIs on Sunday. But I kind of want to pose this question before we get on to the I think you next have the midweek results, or the midweek I want to pose this
Both.
question. Coastal Carolina pitching. I think that you've got a serious concern. I just said how great the offense looked, but I think you have a serious concern when it comes to the pitching staff, more than we already knew, right? You lost Cameron Flukie, you lost Hayden Johnson, but you were like, can we figure it out until they get back? But if you watched those games and you paid attention to the line, like, Luke Jones struggled. The Friday night starter, he struggled in his outing. 4 walks, 2 hit by pitches, struggling with command. It was the offense that pulled through and ended the game early. Ross Norman was great. And like Ross Norman on Saturday, 7-inning complete game shutout. This is the guy that you wanted to step up when the news came down that you were down 2 of your star pitchers. And then Case Bosch, who had a great start to the season. He finally got roughed up a little bit on Sunday, and Kevin Schnall needed to go to Scott Doran for 4 innings of relief. I mean, I guess I'll just pose the question, like, what kind of concern, like, you're concerned, right, about the way that they're using pitchers, like, not even out of, like, choice, like, they don't have a choice but to do what they're doing in order to win games, but, like, how sustainable is this?
Right.
So.
Well, that's a good question. Probably someone with way better baseball knowledge than myself could really truly answer that for you. But at the same time, it's kind of like you said, they've done what they needed to overcome any of those deficiencies, to the point where, like you said, they're not even playing whole baseball games right now. And so if they can do that in the time when they're trying to get the real depth and this real starters back to where they should be and have the roster and the rotation where they want it, then I mean, I think when they come back, it's just going to make this team even stronger, right? Like that, you say you have a concern, but I think the rest of the conference should have a concern, because once it gets back to the way that they thought it was going to be at the start of the season, now you're all in trouble, right? Like this team was winning without these guys, and now they've added them back. I don't think they get worse, right? I mean, maybe these
Yeah.
guys aren't the hottest they're going to be when they first get back into the rotation, and maybe they're brought back slowly and they have fewer innings to start with, but there's still talent there. There's still guys that have been on the mound in big time games, in big time situations, that have gotten the job done. Oh, and half of that just happens to be the fact they got to the freaking national championship game last year. So yeah, this is, like you said, worrisome, but I think more so for the rest of the conference than Coastal long term. Now, again, you brought up some points where in the short term there may still be some deficiencies there. But again, midweeks for a team like Coastal, for a team like Southern Miss, as long as they can take care of the stuff on the weekends, like both teams did, it's not the worst thing if you do drop one of those games, because both of those teams are playing teams that are well thought of, high RPI teams. You can't drop the games to High Point, Radford, I don't know, Kennesaw State. Like those are the teams you can't lose to, but you can lose to the teams that are in the ACC and the SEC for the most part and not get hurt too badly, because their RPI, just playing the game, helps you in general, kind of thing. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
I guess just to put a bow on it, I'm waiting for the game that Coastal needs their pitching.
Good
And
point.
because the offense has, the offense had a slow start. The offense is the reason that they didn't do well in Houston. The offense is the reason that they ended up dropping a game to East Carolina, even though they won that series. That was when the offense was starting to turn around, but it was shaky. Now the offense is woken up, but like we saw in their 26 game win streak last season, when they got to LSU, the bats froze and you needed pitching. And you had a guy named Cameron Flukie who dueled it out with the number 3 overall pick, Cade Anderson. And it was a 1-0 loss, which you can live with. At this point in time, I don't know if I see a guy who's going to be able to have that impact for Coastal other than Cameron Flukie. So who's going to step up?
It's a good point.
Who's going to step up in his absence and give you a solid start? We've already got the relief appearance. This is like the third or fourth multi-inning relief appearance for Scott Dorn. He has been lights out. But who's going to be that starter that steps up and becomes your guy? Because you've seen some struggles from all 3 of your guys so far, which is to be expected. Like, this is by no means me saying that these guys just aren't up to the task. Like, this was a big piece of news when Cameron Flukie and Hayden Johnson were sidelined for at least 8 weeks. Huge piece of news.
Oh, yeah.
But now, 6 weeks into the season, have we gotten anywhere, I guess, is my concern. And thank God for the offense. That's what I'll put a bow on it for.
There you go. Yeah, the offense can overcome. And we've seen some of that in the games this past week. But I think the biggest one here for me, well, there's 2 decent ones here for the outcomes. Southern Miss gets a little bit of revenge on Nichols, because they were the team that beat them right after Southern Miss, literally the day before, had beaten Mississippi State. They went down to Nichols at home again after that, because that was a 2-game homestand. So they went on the road and beat Nichols. And I believe I was told this is the first time they ever went to Nichols. They've played them in a neutral site in years past. This is the first time they ever traveled to their school to play a game. So that's kind of cool for Nichols. It's also great for Southern Miss to rebound and get a victory, a 4-0 victory, so to kind of get on the right side of that one. Texas State, maybe we should have seen this weekend coming with them playing a very competitive 3-run game with a number 23 ranked Texas A&M team at the time. And Texas A&M, it actually fell in the rankings from 23 to 25 this week. But yeah, and then South Alabama gets the win over Alabama. As much as that's the smaller school playing the big school, Alabama's not ranked. I don't believe they've been ranked at any point in the season. So the good news is South Alabama got the win anyway, but I'm not even putting that up on a pedestal really because I half expected South Alabama to win that game going in, right?
Yeah, SEC win though. It's good for the
True.
resume of the conference. Just means more here in the Sun Belt.
There you go. I love it. I love it. We also had Georgia State winning, but Georgia Southern again falling 16-6. Kennesaw State. So not only are they just losing, they're just losing ugly sometimes. Crazy. Troy got the win over Alabama State. JMU got the win over in-state George Washington. That's what the GW stands for. Hey, you got to explain this one, right?
I can't.
So Campbell, they've had some history in the past, but 4-3 there in Bowie's Creek, North Carolina. Any thoughts on the Coastal game there, the one-run loss?
Yeah, just it's a head scratcher. The previous weekend they sweep App State. They look really good. I think the previous midweek was Wake Forest. So,
So
they're on at least a 4-game win streak, looking pretty good. And then they drop a game to a team that they beat earlier this year and I think killed. So it's a head scratcher, but you can't win 26 in a row every year. So I guess it's fine. It's a head scratcher though, for sure.
Yeah. We had 2 games that were complete. Well, actually, no. The ULM New Orleans game wasn't a blowout, but it was 12-17. Warhawks exploded for 17 runs. ODU does the same type of thing to Norfolk State. They get 16 runs of their own to the Spartans 4. So that was a good-looking win for the Sun Belt there. Essentially, a win that you want to see. Like that's the kind of easily won fashion that we like. And then the Cajuns got by a rather scrappy Houston team 6-3. So they started off the week fine, right? That was good. And then they got into this weekend stuff here that we're about to get into. And it didn't go so well. They lose that first game to Texas State 4-1. But here, bottom line, I don't really want to talk about much else. Let's talk about that game in the middle of the screen. Marshall and Georgia Southern played a freaking football game that Marshall won 17-16. I think both teams used like 7, 8, maybe 9 pitchers in this game to try and get it done. I think it went to the 14th inning. I mean, it was just a crazy marathon of a game that saw, I'd have to believe that's some of the most runs combined for the year. I think one of our teams scored like 20-some runs earlier, so it's not the most single team run wise, but I think combination wise, it's probably the biggest scoring output of the season.
Well, I'll tell you right now, I looked at this series pretty closely. Not to get ahead of ourselves, but the series combined, these two teams combined for 81 total runs in 3 games. They were playing basketball, not football. They were playing basketball this weekend. Just look up the box score of this and you'll see, like, you've got 2 players on each team that finished with 4 hits in that game. You've got 13 of the 17 runs. 13 of the 17 runs come by way of RBIs for Marshall. Every single player in that lineup that had an RBI had at least 2 multi-RBI games for them. There were 5. 3 of them had 3 RBIs. You look at the other side, like I said, another 2 4-hit performances for Georgia Southern, Sean White and Bryson Trammell on that side. These 2 teams both eclipsed 20 hits, 20 for Georgia Southern, 21 for Marshall. And then you look at the pitching staff, and yes, you've got a lot of pitchers. It's actually 5 apiece. It's 5 apiece.
Oh, it's only 5
of these.
Okay.
It's 5 apiece because both of these teams, and I found it very funny that it was exactly this number. Both teams had a relief pitcher go 5 1/3.
Ah,
both teams. So I don't know what it was about, wanting to get 16 outs with one guy, but they made it happen. Charlie Krebs and Brady Penley. Penley ended up with the loss in the decision after Marshall took the lead in the top half of the 14th. Just an insane box score to look at. Just the amount, like you would think that
yeah,
this was a weekend total. It's insane what they did on
right.
Friday.
Yeah, it absolutely is. And shout out Diamond Baseball Stats. If you don't have this app, it's free. It's awesome. It tells you everything you need to know. They're saying that the attendance was 1,705. That's at Georgia Southern, folks. That's at a team who's not doing very well this season. So shout out to that many people going out and attending. We know sometimes those things get fluffed. I don't think it's going to be that fluffed, right? So there's still, even if they're off by a few hundred, that's still over 1,000 people in the stands watching that game. Pretty awesome. I'm sure it didn't end with that many people in the stands. This game lasted 4 hours and 54 minutes. You're almost 5 hours into a baseball game. That's insanity.
It's two baseball games.
Yeah.
It's almost two. You two
yeah,
for the price of one.
yeah, absolutely. Just insane. And like you said, we're going to see more scores that kind of indicate how that game went. Coastal got the big win over JMU in that second game, 10-0 to again run rule them. Southern Miss responds after the first loss to Troy to win 11-5 in their game. Texas State again wins 11-4 over the Cajuns. App State gets back on the board against ODU, winning 10-3 to flip that series into a 1-1 draw. A-State gets back on the board after losing that first game to Georgia State, and South Alabama ties things up with the Warhawks of ULM. Oh, I'm sorry. Flip that. South Alabama had won the first game. ULM wins the second game 9-6. I don't know if any of these, and I guess I'd say Coastal is the one that sticks out the most, unless you want to say like A-State getting that 13-5 comeback revenge game against Georgia State there on the road in Atlanta. I don't know. Anything particular standing out more than either one of those, maybe?
No, I mean the big thing for me with the Coastal JMU game was the fact that Ross Norman is continuing a tremendous month of March. It only went 7 innings, but he pitched all 7 of them, so it goes down as a complete game shutout for Norman. Great performance by him. When it comes to, what was the other game that you brought up?
A-State and Georgia State. Just the fact that they didn't revenge win 13-5 after losing that first game. I think it was 5-2. If we jump back a second, yeah, 5-2.
Yeah, I mean, what I'll say about that series as a whole, I don't know if you'll allow me to jump ahead.
Yeah.
But that series as a whole, when you look at game one, in A-State, Georgia State, the seventh inning of game one was it ended up being the difference of the series. Because you had Chase Richter, he started the game, he pitched 6 innings of great performance. His only mistake really was a Wills McGinnis home run, which I think McGinnis ended with 3 home runs in the series. So, whatever. He was on a heater that weekend. You give up 1 run, but then he implodes in the 7th inning. He gives up 2 hits, strikes out the last batter he faced. I wouldn't even say implodes. He gives up 2 hits. He gets 2 runners on, strikes out the last batter he faces, and then Tyler Weimer comes in, and he gets the first batter to strike out. A-State's 1 out away from taking a lead to the 8th inning, which would have put him in a position to, hindsight 2020, win the series. But he walks the next guy, and then Austin Sellers hits the go-ahead 2 RBI single to take the lead. So it's a tough way to, if you could have that 7th inning back, the A-State would have the win in this series. So it's a heartbreaker for A-State, but just a great way to get the job done by Georgia State.
Yeah, absolutely. Really is. I mean, this is a team in Georgia State that had a couple surprising wins that were like, all right, maybe they're for real. And then they come out with this type of a series against a team that had just gotten ranked, again, in some polls, not others, but a team that was still hot in A-State. They had series. Well, the series split with Arkansas, I guess, if you want to say it that way, even though they only played 2 games. They lost that second game by only 1 run and had a number of 1-run losses that were on their record. But yeah, it's a big one for the Panthers down there in Atlanta. I think that's a team that could be on the rise, right? It'll be interesting to see how much a new stadium helps recruiting moving forward down there in Atlanta. And then again, Marshall, Georgia Southern, they're like, hey, you think what we did was good on Friday? Check this 12-18 score out. But this time, the Eagles of Georgia Southern got the better of it. Just some insane games there. It's like, pitching optional in that one, which is funny because we're going to see some of the leaders in this conference pitching-wise come from the Marshall Thundering Herd. So
No, the series as a whole was just nuts. Series as a whole was just crazy. The other thing I'll bring up, since these are the scores for the third games that we have up on the screen, and we've covered the entire series at this point. I think that this was a big a big series for your Mountaineers. This was a much needed series, because you look back at last week when you guys, App State gets swept by Coastal, but in every single one of those games against Coastal, App State is in a position to win, and then Coastal reclaims the lead late. The offense jumps out for App State, they stall, and they lose. That's what happened all last weekend. The first game, it's the same story. You've got they jump out to a 6-1 lead, and then Dorito, I think his name is Dorito.
Just like the chip.
Yeah, he imploded in the fourth inning. This was an implosion. 5 hits and a walk before leaving the game without recording an out in the inning. And then the next inning, Everett Harris, who relieved him, gave up another 5. And they just went completely silent. They only scored 1 more run for the rest of the game. They finished with 7 runs and still end up getting killed in that game. Games 2 and 3, you see them jump out to the lead, but you see them finish the job. And I think that clubhouse needed to see that happen. They needed to see some reward for the early offense. So kudos to App State pulling out the rest of this series after game 1. And maybe this is a turning point for this club, who they have no problem jumping on the bats, but it's about staying on the bats for them.
Yeah, and the same thing when I saw him in person. I've only seen him once so far in person this year against Duke. Jumped out to a very early lead in the top of the first. Couldn't sustain it. And part of that is pitching depth and Duke having, a deeper roster overall. It's not surprised. But I compared it to what they had seen last year, where they got destroyed by double digits early on and were never in the game. This year, they were in it until the very last inning. I mean, I stayed to the very end, hoping that they could, pull something kind of magical out at the end. I think they only ended up losing by 2 or 3 runs in that one. So yeah, I'm with you. I mean, there's a reason I'm still wearing the shirt, right? Like I got hope. I think, you get those games again. If Coastal's as good as everyone thinks and hopes that they are, App State being that competitive against them is a good omen. Now it's unfortunate for App and their fans that they don't get at least one win there to take some credence to that. But then like you said, you start this one off with a loss to ODU and you go, here we go again. So you're right. Getting those 2 victories and the series win, ultimately a big deal for the Mountaineers, and see if they can keep
in
that.
The way that they did it.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. And then, you got Southern Miss here, a ranked team who was looking at losing a series against Troy, and they did hold on for a 5-4 victory in that one to continue to hold the top-ranked spot within the Sun Belt. Yet again, you got a Coastal Carolina team that could jump up here this week with a win if Southern Miss struggles at all. We got a heavy slate Tuesday. All right, we're not going to run through all of the games, TJ. What I typically have the guys do is kind of pick out your biggest game of the day. And that's going to be a tough one here because there's 2 that we've already talked about. I don't think a third one's going to sneak up here, but I don't know. You got to pick probably between Southern Miss, Mississippi State. I forgot to put the ranking over there beside Mississippi State. They are, what did I say, currently number
Number
5,
6, I believe.
6. Number 6. So I'll update that before we put that out on socials. But yeah, you've got number 11 versus number 6. And then you've got number 15, Coastal Carolina versus a now newly unranked Clemson. They just fell out this week after going 2-3 this past week, but they are 18-7 overall in the year.
I don't know that I can pick between the two because I think that they're equally important for each of these teams where they currently stand. And this isn't a cop-out answer. I'm going to explain myself. Southern Miss, they already beat Mississippi State. Mississippi State is still in a top 10 position. This is an opportunity for Southern Miss to pick up a second top 10 win and to basically what I would say is if they win this game on Tuesday and they turn around and have a very competitive rest of the season, like same rate that they're going at, drop a couple losses here and there, but you've got two top 10 wins on the schedule. If you're competitive in the conference tournament, I think that they're a lock for at least an at-large bid in the dance. I think that that's so important, getting this win and just continuing to go along the path that you've already set for yourself. Tomorrow's a huge game for Southern Miss. In the same token, Coastal going up against Clemson, they're running out of big games. Coastal's running out of big games, and they kind of squandered the opportunity early on in the season. Everyone was very up and ready to go for the Bruce Bolt Classic in Houston. They got crushed by Texas. They got crushed by UTSA, and they were able to pull one out against Ole Miss. But then they also had a game against NC State, I believe. And if I'm not mistaken, they lost that game. Let me just double check. Yeah, they lost in Raleigh 6-4. So then you have East Carolina, which is great. They're a tournament team, and they're probably going to win the American again, but that doesn't have the same appeal as some of these bigger brands. Clemson just got knocked out of the top 25, but they've been a top 25 team every single week up until this one. This is a good Clemson team. You have a win against Wake Forest. That's your marquee win of the season. Them and Ole Miss, if you count them, who have since dropped out of the poll. So those are your two wins. You need to make the most out of the rest of them. You've got one more. I think you've got one more. They've played Wake Forest. No, you've got two more against Wake Forest. And then you've got one more against Clemson after Tuesday. Those games are must win at this point because you weren't competitive against Texas. If you play poker, right? The saying is like, if you go in on a pot and it gets to showdown and you turn over a terrible hand, your table image is terrible, right? That's what Coastal's table image is in the national landscape. They're down a bunch of pitchers. They weren't competitive in the big name games. Clemson is so important for them.
I like it. Yeah, I think over there on that side that we're looking at, if we're seeing it visually, you've got the ranked matchup you spoke about. You've got South Alabama versus Auburn, underrated matchup. Again, Auburn's not ranked. Oh, I'm sorry. I missed that one too. Auburn is number 5 in the country right now. So that's a big shot for South Alabama. And then in the middle of this thing, you've got number 17 West Virginia visiting the Marshall Thundering Herd. This is a game that was supposed to have happened already once this season. I believe Marshall was supposed to go on the road to West Virginia the first time. Game got canceled due to weather. I think the weather didn't really end up coming or being too bad of a situation. So look, these two teams hate each other. These fan bases hate each other. So I want to see what the current second place team within the Sun Belt is going to do against a number 17 ranked West Virginia team that they beat at least once last year. Can they do it again? That would be a massive win for themselves as well as the Sun Belt. Same type of situation there with South Alabama. Getting against a team in state that they don't get the shot at often. So those two teams or matchups maybe not as high up as the two that we spoke about with Southern Miss and Coastal, but every bit as important specifically to those teams, but also to the conference look and the conference RPI, right, TJ?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if there was a weekend that Marshall wanted to drop 42 runs in preparation for a midweek game, this was the week.
That's it.
So I'm excited to watch that one as well.
Yeah, it's much watched TV Tuesday, which is nice. The only downside to it is like I wish we had like those 4 or 5 matchups on a Wednesday, and then some of these matchups get moved because I got to be honest, I'm not really pumped about any one of these particular games here. If you had to pick one between ODU at Richmond, Troy at Florida A&M, or Georgia Southern at College of Charleston, which one would you watch?
I mean, I would say I'd I'd probably watch Georgia Southern Charleston. See if
Okay.
Georgia Southern can get something going. Charleston is a team that just routinely gives Coastal Carolina problems. So like that's it, it's a good win. It's a sneaky good win, and it's something that can turn the corner and get you going in the right direction. So I think it's probably most important for Georgia Southern to get back on the right track as we head into week 3 of conference play.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a good point. I mean, Georgia Southern jumped up and surprised a Clemson team, so they could do it to a CSC team that's definitely not as strong as that Clemson team. So it will be interesting to see what we can have come out of that small Wednesday slate, but that'll be nice because we'll be pretty busy Tuesday night trying to keep up with everything. All right. So next we're going to take a look at this weekend series and see which one is our series of the week. All right, so we've got number 15, Coastal Carolina, traveling up to Huntington, West Virginia to play the Marshall Thundering Herd. Texas State on the road in Atlanta to play the Panthers. It's the Cats versus the Cats in that one. Troy on the road to play Georgia Southern. App State, black and gold versus black and gold. Number 11, Southern Miss on the road for the Mountaineers. We've got the Battle of Louisiana as ULM travels to Lafayette to face the Cajuns. JMU at Arkansas State, ODU at South Alabama. I know where I'm going, TJ. Where are you going on this one?
So I think it's easy. I'm gonna hopefully throw a curveball here. I think it's really easy
Okay.
to pick one of the ranked teams and say, oh, it's Coastal Carolina going up against 42 runs last weekend in Marshall, or an App State team that just it feels like they should be competitive or more competitive than they are going up against one of the best teams in the conference. So it's easy to pick one of those two. I think ULM Louisiana is the series of the week because you've got two storylines like I mentioned before. ULM, they're 4-2, but you really have no idea what you're getting out of these two teams. Raging Cajuns just dropped out of the top 25. They need a rebound. And if it was any other year, ULM would be the perfect rebound, but you don't know what you're getting out of the Warhawks. So I feel like in-state rivalry, juice is flowing, and two teams that could really change the trajectory of their seasons with this series. I'd have my eyes on that.
I love that answer. I did not think that was coming from you. I did not expect that answer, but I love it. I'll do your team. I think when you have 1 versus 2 in the conference, you've got the off-brand greens matching up against each other, the Kelly green and the teal, as we spoke about earlier. But I want to see if Marshall's for real. Can they score that type of run outage against a team as good as Coastal? As you said, maybe Coastal not quite as dominant as they could have even been somehow, if that's possible. But do they put it more together on the road? Again, this is a different type of park up here. This is one of the Sun Belt conference stadiums that is not quite the hitter's park. If anything, it's kind of the opposite because of the way the wind carries back in, at least from what we're told. I obviously don't have any personal experience with that. I gotta listen to these players tell us how these things work. But yeah, that one is just the way that I'd have to pick. I do have interest, obviously, in App State versus Southern Miss, and there's been some history in the Sun Belt Conference tournament between those two teams. And definitely, like you said, definitely have an interest in ULM Cajuns. But if I had to pick one, I said I'm only watching, for whatever reason you could, pay a bunch of money and only could get to watch one of these. I'm watching your Shots versus the Thundering Herd over there in Huntington, West Virginia.
Two things. Number one, you have the Conway stamp of approval to consider teal to be a shade of green, but you do not have the approval to call it off-brand green. That's nuts. Second of all,
I'm sure the Thundering Herd fans think the same thing of off-brand green. They're like, "What the hell did that guy just say?"
That's crazy. Like, first of all, it's teal and probably the greenest of greens in college sports. But
yeah,
whatever.
It's true.
That's first of all. Second of all, yes, I do. Another thing to add off of that, we talked about the pitching for Coastal. Marshall, I don't think it's possible to get hotter than Marshall right now at the plate. So this is going to be a big test to hopefully answer some questions for some of the questions I posed before. Is this Coastal pitching staff able to shut down a lineup when they are needed? Let's say that the lineup for Coastal, they fall asleep for a game or they only put up 5, only 5 for Coastal this year. Can the pitching staff come through and can they shut down the Sun Belt's hottest offense and pick up a win? That's a big question in that series.
Absolutely is. Speaking of some names that we need to be paying attention to, I put some stuff together. We said we're going to start bringing in some names to this, some guys you're going to be hearing more about. So let's start with the long ball. Everyone loves the long ball. So let's look at the home run leaders as they stand right now. We're going to look at the top 3 for all of these categories. There's more categories we could add to this. We could subtract to this. We could just change them in the future. I think there's 4 of these things together today for this one. We'll be here all night if we put every statistical category together. But Lane Walton is hot at the plate and has been throughout the season as he leads the league. This is Sun Belt specific right now. We should maybe do some national leaders too if we've got a bunch of guys in there. But Lane Walton, home runs on the year, sits at 10 for the Arkansas State Red Wolves. Kyle Morrison is just behind him, as well as Jimmy Janicki. Kyle Morrison, a Southern Miss Golden Eagle. Jimmy Janicki, a Troy Trojan. They're both sitting there, like I said, close behind, but both with 8 apiece. I don't know if there's anything specific you want to add to this, TJ. We could roll through these quickly. Again, I just mainly want to get everyone hearing some of these names, and then they say, "Oh, we got to watch out for this guy," or "Yeah, it's not surprising that this guy did well against us," type of thing.
Well, I won't add anything specific. I'll just add some context. Lane Walton with 10 leads the Sun Belt. He's currently tied for 16th nationally. It's a big way tie. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13-way tie for 16th with 10 home runs. And then Kyle Morrison and Jimmy Janicki are tied for 49th. So you've got 3 top 50 home run hitters in NCAA.
Nice. Gotta love it. And yeah, I think Lane Walton's actually slowed down just slightly here lately, but we'll see if he picks the pace back up here as we get into weekend play. So on the opposite side of this, let's look at some of the leaders for strikeouts in the league. Andrew Herman leads the pitchers from the Ragin' Cajuns with 49 strikeouts so far on the year. Gage Peterson from App State. Look at that stride in that pitch, man, right there. 47 strikeouts on the year. And one of our favorite guests of all time, who's been on the show now twice, we weren't lucky enough to get him before the season started. In fact, we didn't get anybody from Marshall. We'll continue to work on that. But Mr. Bryce Blevins himself, with 44 strikeouts for the Herd. I should have worn my my Marshall hat with my Abs shirt today to confuse everybody, but I have the hat that he has on in that picture right there. It's a sharp looking hat, and then I wouldn't have been confused on the green.
Well, the only thing I'll say
yeah.
about the only thing I'll say about this one is the Louisiana, App State, and Marshall are going to want to go reach out to the NCAA because they have not updated their numbers. Apparently, Bryce Blevins and Andrew Herman are tied with 44 strikeouts apiece, and that is not the case according to the official Sun Belt statistics. So something that they're going to want to look at and finally update. And you've got Nick Dorito with 42, apparently leads App State. Gage Peterson has 41 on here. We got to be better than this, NCAA. You're not updated. That is ridiculous here. You're updated on home runs, but not on pitcher strikeouts.
Yeah, that is weird. I just went the Sun Belt's website's kind of easy to read in this, so I like how they have theirs laid out with the XML option.
It's also
if you want to look these things
accurate.
up yourself, right? Yeah, which NCAA apparently is not. Which we've seen some stuff be wrong on Sun Belt's website. We have to be honest. We saw, I think it was you who pointed it out. There was a certain statistic earlier this year. I think it was one of the wide receivers, if I'm not mistaken. It was way off. It said he averaged like 275 yards a game or something like that, which was not even close to what was accurate.
Yeah, no, it wasn't even close. It's like in that scenario, just start picking out your suit for the green room at the NFL draft.
Yeah, exactly.
You're the number one overall pick.
Yeah, you're the Heisman winner, the Maxwell winner, everything. You won everything. So yeah. Anyway, those are your strikeout leaders. Again, we'll go back to the bats and your leaders in RBIs. No surprise here. We'll start at the third position, I guess, if you want to call it that. Lane Walton, with his success at the plate, also leads. He's number 3 in RBIs with 32. And second, we'll go backwards the whole way here. Zach Light from ODU with 36. In that dark blue Monarch jersey there, and one of the cooler jerseys, at least in my opinion. ULM's Jake Haggard has 37 RBIs on the year, wearing the I'm going blank on the plain name that the jersey's inspired from, but you all know what I'm talking about. It's got the shark teeth and all that stuff. So I love that crazy looking jersey because it's just fun, and I like when they do the fun stuff. We got a cool jersey that made the graphics here in a second. You got anything on the RBI leaders before we move over?
Well, once again, some discrepancies in NCAA, but with 37, which I'm going to assume is correct because I double checked Andrew Herman from the strikeouts, and according to Louisiana's official website, he's got 49 strikeouts and not whatever NCAA said. So I'm going to assume that NCAA is wrong. 37 would put him in a tie for 5th in the country with 37 RBIs. 36 is a tie for 11th for Zach Light, and Lane Walton with 32 would be a tie for 20th.
Nice. So we got some guys putting stats up here. I like that. Very nice. All right, the last one for this week. Again, we'll probably mix these up. There's a whole lot of things to choose from, but I was trying to get some of the ones that are a little more fun, at least to start with, or some of the ones that are more meaningful or people want to see a little bit more. But this is the wins leaders for guys on the mound. I thought this was a little bit interesting too here. Obviously not terribly far into the season, so you're not seeing guys with 20 plus games or anything crazy. But you have Jesus Tovar from Texas State with 5 wins on the year. Once again, Mr. Bryce Blevins making his impact known with 4 right behind him from Marshall once again. And J.C. Dermondi Dermody. How do you think that's pronounced, TJ? I'm probably butchering it.
Probably Dermody.
Dermody. Uh, and and this is the jersey that I was referencing here, the Warhawks in their Mardi Gras jersey. So when I saw that shot, I was like, "Yep, we're getting that one. We're putting that one in the graphic." So he's also got 4 wins so far on the year. If you're still watching and listening, shout out which ones you want to see done. We'll also put these up on social media as well for those that are just listening to the show, so you can kind of see these and have these shared around a little bit. But TJ, anything to add to our wins? Are there any discrepancies with the NCAA in this particular category?
No, I'm not checking. I don't care. I don't care. I'm going to assume that there are discrepancies. But what I'm doing right now is I'm stalling so that I can bring up Jesus Tovar. Tovar last season, a 6.21 ERA last season. He was a guy that, if I remember correctly, they faced Southern Miss in their first game in the Sun Belt Championships. Pitched 2 innings, 4 hits, 3 runs allowed. But he's bouncing back this season. I mean, he finished the year last year with 8-7 record, I believe, is, if I'm counting that correctly. I'm doing this a little fast, but yeah, I mean, you love to see Tovar come back, because when he was on last year, and when he struggled heavily. So a nice start to the season for him.
Yeah, you said, what was his ERA last year? It was over 6?
Over 6.
He's at 2.97. So there's a massive improvement right there, like you were just stating. So great stuff. I thought about putting the ERA together. I was trying to do some ones where, like, you had some different guys from some different teams, like not too much of the same guys, but some guys still made an appearance because they're just that dang good. But ERA could have been interesting because you had App State, a Cajun player, an Arkansas State player that are in your top 3. They're all below 2 in the ERA category. So that is really impressive as well. But I don't know. It doesn't tell you exactly what the threshold is for that requirement, right? Like, how many innings do you have to have under your belt? Sometimes those things get skewed a little bit when it's not even, but interesting to say the least. Man, this was a fun one. We got to talk about what happened last week, what we are going to see this week. We got some names going, some statistics that we're going to be talking about and covering a little bit further as we go into the year. I'm just ready to enjoy a bunch of baseball tomorrow, man. I'm ready to hit the bed tonight and watch a bunch of baseball tomorrow because of it. What do you think?
Yeah, absolutely. Big games this weekend. A couple of top 10 matchups, a couple of SEC matchups in the midweek, and then, like I said, Warhawks Cajuns. That's a sleeper. It's an important series. Keep an eye on it.
Absolutely. Keep checking out syndicatesports.io. Again, we've changed the website name so that we can have more coverage of more teams, and we're going to continue to build that up. But syndicatesports.io, we're going to continue to cover Sunbelt baseball as best we can for the remainder of the season. And as always, we'll see you guys next time.